I want to talk about how you can turn your fear into strength.
One, two, three, four!
All of us at one point or another have fear. It could be fear of failure, it could be fear of losing money, of going broke, it could be fear of getting turned down. There's a long list of what those fears are. But the key is being able to turn that fear into a strength and using it to your advantage. And today I'm going to talk about how you can do that. There are a few simple steps that will help you to turn that fear into a strength. So I'm going to go through those. And they're pretty simple and straightforward. The hard part is putting them into action and staying consistent with each step. Make sure to hit the subscribe button below so that all the other videos that come out that help you grow, you won't miss out on those. So let's jump into the list. The very first thing you want to do when it comes to turning fear into strength is you always want to act from a place of personal strength, not weakness. What that means is that you have to act. You don't want to back down. You don't want to go hide in a corner. If you are fearful of something, you need to face it head on. Don't run from it. Embrace it. Because fear is just false evidence appearing real anyway. So most likely, there really is no fear. And because there's no such thing as failure, there are only outcomes. Your divorce wasn't a failure, it was an outcome. The unplanned child wasn't a failure, it was an outcome. Your bankruptcy wasn't a failure, it was an outcome. Your D in class wasn't a failure, it was an outcome. Your last place finish in a race wasn't a failure, it was an outcome. It was not a failure. So there's no reason to be fearful because you're not failing. You just have a specific outcome. This idea of turning fear into a personal strength goes to the second step, which is taking charge. This means you need to be responsible for everything that happens to you, both good and bad. No one's responsible for your world except for yourself. You need to create the world that you want, which requires you to take charge, to take initiative to create that world that you want. And you can't create what you want if you're too busy being fearful. The third thing is that there's no such thing as you can't. It's not, oh, I can't, or I can't do that. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as I can't because you must. If you want something and your mind is set on what you want, then you must do it. You have to do it. You can't have fear. So when you have that fear, you have to tell yourself, oh, step number 3, I must do this. There's no I can't. There's no it won't happen. It's that I must do it. I have to. That's the only answer. I can't back down and go hide in a corner. I can't have fear. And even if I have that fear, I'm going to turn it into a strength. Why? Because I have to do it. I have to make that commitment. In making that commitment to go forward, even though you have fear, is really stretching yourself. In order to stretch yourself over and over and over again, it's just like working out. You have to work the muscle out, right? Which means you have to stay consistent. You have to do it over and over and over. Why? Because it helps build strength, your personal strength, to overcome those fears. Now, let's say this is brand new to you and you're not used to doing something you've always been afraid of doing. An option you have, the first option, is that you can make a public commitment to it. Tell a friend, tell family, put it on social media, whatever you need to do to publicly commit that you're going to get something done. So now you're held accountable. So now you definitely must do it. There's no way you can hide. There's no fear now. So that's one way you could do it. The second way that you can stretch yourself and say to yourself, I must do this. The other option is model your behavior after someone else, someone you look up to. So see what they're doing and model those same behaviors, whoever that might be. Number 4, be committed to unconscious competence, not cognitive details. Let me explain. The easiest way to explain this concept is that you want to go into a field and you really just want to pick the fruit, meaning you don't need to know how fruit is made. You don't need to know where the peaches are indigenous. You don't need to know every single day that The fruit grew a certain amount of centimeters. You don't need to know all that extra stuff, or how it's made, or the photosynthesis of the plants and how the fruits are made. Doesn't matter. What you need to do, though, is you need to pick the fruit. You need to do what matters. And so that's your competence, your unconscious competence, is picking that fruit, not having to know everything about it. You don't need to know every single detail, but you need to be unconsciously competent enough to get the job done. So if you're fearful because you think you don't know all the details or you don't have all the information, you don't have to. You just need to be competent enough to pick the fruit, which means you need to be competent enough to get the job done. Number 5, always act from a place of ethical wholeness. I'm going to call this personal integrity, okay? That gives you strength. When you have basic guidelines or a code by which you live your life. And for those of you out there that like Marvel, even the Punisher had a code of ethics. Yeah, he's murdering people, but he still had a code. This personal integrity and strength really just comes down to one quote, and that's the fact that believe what you believe in is true. That's it. Believe what you believe is true. When you believe what you're doing and the things that you're going after are true, how can you be afraid? You can't. Number 6, the meaning of communication are the results that you get. And this is huge when it comes to marketing. You could put whatever you want out into the world in social media or as an advertisement, but that communication you put out is only as useful as the response you get from it because you're trying to instill a change. So, what you communicate, the feedback you get from that is what really matters, regardless of your intent. And it's unfortunate, but it's true. At the end of the day, intention doesn't mean anything. It's the results. And you see that with famous people and you see it with politicians. They may intend for something to go one way, and the media will manipulate or take a snippet out of context. And what happens? People flip out, and the media gets a specific response. They're definitely manipulating it, unfortunately. And that's my point. That's what I mean by communication comes down to the response you get. So, what does that have to do with fear and personal strength? That means what you say to yourself holds power because it will drive specific outcomes. So, yes, of course, make sure you have the right intent. But when it comes to talking to others, yourself, no matter what, remember it is the outcome that matters when it comes to communication, not necessarily the intent. So, be careful. And number 7 is that you need to do whatever it takes to succeed. That is WITS, WITTS. Whatever it takes to succeed without hurting anyone, which is what I mean by number 5, the ethical code. So you can't have fear if you're acting from a place of personal power, meaning you will do whatever it takes to get to where you want to go. There is no that someone can tell you. There's nothing you could be afraid of that's going to stop you. If you look at everyone who's successful or has made it, do you think that someone would come in front of them and stop them with a simple no, or you can't do this, or you're ugly, or fat, or weak, or slow? You think athletes care? No. It makes them stronger because they're going to prove you wrong and they have goals set and they're going to get there no matter what it takes. Just remember, you are committed to doing whatever it takes to succeed without hurting anyone else, including your family or yourself. And this will help you get through any fear that you might have. I think at the end of the day, these steps will help you to reach your goals.